Hello, welcome to my channel or welcome back. Today I have sort of a wrap-up video of the project Level Up. So if that sounds interesting to you, then please keep watching. If you don't know what Project Level Up is, it's started by Sophie Alexandra here on YouTube. I will link her in my description box. And you work through your palettes, you're hitting pans, you're using every single shade depending on which level you're on. And this year I did levels 1 through 5. I decided after level 5 that with such little time left in the year, I was going to just instead work through all of my palettes, doing 3 looks within a palette and just, almost like a review before a final exam type of thing. So I asked in my last video if people wanted to see looks, and I'm glad you said yes, since I had actually been trying to do it. I've been trying to look back at my photos. I think there are some that are missing. I don't know. I can see if I find them before I actually get this video posted, but there's a chance that some of them aren't going to have the full 3 photos, for the look. So I'm sorry about that in advance, but let me go ahead and show you what I have because I did finish all of my palettes. So I'm looking between my computer to see the looks, and then also I'm going to be showing you the palettes. So the first one that I was making some use of was my Marvelous Mauves or Marvelous Mauves palette. And I'm a little bit limited, partially because there's only 5 shades, partially because it's a very simple color story, partially because I had used up a shade already this year. So I started to allow myself, initially, like I did a look with it where it was just a matte look, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is fine. And then I'm like, I kind of want to have a little more fun with it because I am not looking to use this type of palette as my only palette that I would use, the only thing on my eyes. So I decided to allow myself, starting with this palette, to bring in like loose pigments or sparkly shades, just kind of like special things, because then it would also help me use those up, because those are also things that maybe I wouldn't use just on their own. So like I said, my first look was just a matte look, but then I did one where I was using a loose pigment, and I thought it turned out really nice. It was, getting me excited about both. I'm pretty sure I did another loose pigment or basic matte kind of look and Vibes palette. I was trying to expand the pan for this shade here. So I was, kind of working a warm crease and, this green on the lid. And I was doing a lot of that, not just, for doing my 3 looks, but just kind of doing that overall. And because I was kind of using this, I was like, I was incorporating that green in different ways, but they all kind of ended up looking the same. Oh, I did do one matte look because I thought that would be sort of something different, not to use one of these. And so just kind of working with the mattes to make something out of this very sparkly palette. My Weekend Festival palette. So just to show you the inside here, there's all sorts of different colors I can do. And part of the reason that this was fun to kind of wrap up was that I didn't have to use certain shades. I wasn't trying to hit so many uses or anything like that. So it's like, all right, well, let me just create something that's like really different. So, I had some more basic looks and then, more fun kinds of looks. And I was doing that with then lots of palettes. All right, so that was Weekend Festival. Next, I have my Tartist Pro Remix palette. Part of the reason I brought it in when I did was I was doing my 4 Seasons project pan, and this palette was something that I was bringing in to focus on because I feel like it is a fall palette. And so I wanted to explore the types of looks I could make with, that in mind, but I also kind of was having some fun with cool tones and that kind of thing. So, it was just kind of letting myself play around with it. Unfortunately, I only have one look for this one because when I did my look, well, technically, I only have one look that's only out of this palette. I did then use it later for a video that I did as a collab with DW where we were doing a palette bingo with this palette and the Stone Vibes palette. But I realized in doing this look that you're gonna see on the screen, the shadows were not performing well anymore, and you know, I decided I have a lot of use on here, you know, and it's fine. I am ready to move on from it. So I wasn't going to force myself to make 2 more looks when the shadows are just not great, and this has been retired from my collection, which just means that it's sitting in a cabinet right now. So my next palette was the Prados Beauty palette. And this one, again, there's a lot of directions I could go. So initially I was trying to recreate this pumpkin eye look thing that I'd seen someone do with their eyeliner, and I thought it was cute. So I was just playing around. I was excited that I could just focus on, you know, like a single eyeshadow. Like I don't have to use a ton in here. I wasn't trying to, you know, do something fancy with that. So I think it was this orange that I just used all over, and I'm like, well, here we go, and we did the pumpkin, and it's a look. Then this next look was actually kind of 2 looks in one, but I counted it as one, where I was trying to see with green paired with pink or orange, and you know how they kind of go together. And I was inspired by Ravneet, who had thought that, you know, green could go well, or a certain green that I was working on in something else could go well with pink or orange. And so I'm like, hey, I could just do it right in this palette right now. I don't know, I was inspired, just wanted to do it and just to see. And I was crowdsourcing to see what other people thought too. And then for the next look, I went just in a different direction and, you know, did more of a cool tone type of look. And that was maybe my favorite, although I was also excited just to have that single orange. Next was my Sickly Sweet palette, and this one is probably the favorite palette of my collection. And so it was, you know, very easy to come up with looks. I can definitely create full looks with light shadows, dark shadows, sparkles, you know, the full thing. I don't know if I necessarily did anything super wild and crazy with it, just because I was using this. There's one day a week where I go in and volunteer, like first thing, like I take the kids to school and I'm just there for a while. And so I've been doing just sort of like whatever eyeshadow I'm in the mood for, and a lot of times, you know, this was an easy one to pull, do a fun little look, and then I take it off when I get home, and because I do like a workout, and then I do like a different look for the day, and sometimes it might still be from this palette. But I just like using these shadows as a palette, but also mixed with other ones too. The Zulu palette, I did one look where I brought in the Ladybird Super Shock just to add a little extra sparkle, because there are 3 shades that are metallic-ish. This palette is getting old, just like the other Juvia's Place one that I showed before. And you know, I don't know how much longer I will be able to use this one, although, again, I've gotten lots of use out of it, and the mattes are still working well, so I'm okay with that. But yes, I let myself do it for that. But then I actually am able to create full looks without, so I did do 2 looks that I didn't bring anything in. I thought I would, but don't always need to. From one colorful palette to another one, I have my Juicy Boost palette from Colored Rain. So this one, let's see, I'll show you this way. So here's the one set of shades, and then the other set. So the first look I'm showing was just me doing a Halloween look. I was using the orange, and orange is usually one of my least favorite eyeshadows to wear. At least it's how it tends to play out whenever I have a palette and it's like, oh, which shade haven't I used yet? The oranges, you know. And I don't know. I just seemed to keep wearing orange. I was in the fall, Halloween, and all kind of spirit, so that's how that worked out. But then I decided I wanted to have a little fun and like use, you know, the sparkles that are here. So I used the gold shade. I thought I hit a pan, but apparently I already had a pan, and I guess it had just gotten smushed away at some point, and now it's back. So, you know, there's that. Decided to do the gold and then pop in. I'm like, well, what colors do I often not use? So I believe, yeah, I used this one and I actually really liked it. So go me. Oh, and I even used the red with it too. The next look you're seeing was one that I did a get ready with me where I did this look, and I was inspired by someone on Instagram. So I was kind of doing my best to copy that look. I did allow myself to bring in the special shifty shades for my Cleona singles because again, there are only 3 sparkly shades in here, and I could have just used them, but part of those Cleona singles are kind of meant to be paired with my other shadows, and I decided to let myself do that, you know. But yeah, I really am kind of drawn to the pinks. I guess maybe because of this cover case, whatever, it makes me just think of pinks with this palette. Next, I have the Dollhouse palette. So for the Dollhouse palette, the first look you see is when I was Wonder Woman for Halloween. And I was looking at makeup looks for her. She doesn't really have any classic kind of makeup look. I don't know, there was something, I thought that she did like a blue lid, so that was making me think of this blue in here, so that was part of the reason I did this. But then when I looked it up, it's like, oh no, she just had blue eyes, and that's what stood out for me. So it was like blue eyes, and then she has a very like neutral toned brownish, you know, crease lid color type of thing. So I decided to go like neutral with the blue lid and add sparkles and all. Like I think I used the lace shade there to add a little more sparkle. And to me, that was Wonder Woman for me. So I did one look that was with the pinks, just because that is one of the columns I'm drawn to the most with this. And I was doing it with just the matte shadows. And then I did end up going and adding some different sparkles and kind of playing around. So then I did a green look. I was in the mood, and so I just kind of stuck with the greens here, and I used this. And unfortunately, that look got ruined pretty quickly. My one eye just, oh, it was so sad because I'm like, look, I actually did a fairly simple classic kind of look, and it got ruined. Now this one, when I open it, I don't know if I'm gonna get a mess. So we're gonna find out. But this is where I store my, actually it goes this way. This is where I store my eyeshadows from my Vivid Pigments palette, also from Colored Rain. And the blue's a little bit, they're a little sensitive because I depotted them. So I decided, I did a look with the pink and purple, and then I threw a bunch of Ladybird on top. That was just my go-to with things. Then I did an orange and yellow kind of crease where it's like these two. And I had some fun again with shimmers because again, I'm sort of actually thinking I might stop thinking about this as a palette for as I go into next year and I'm thinking about things, and just more as, if you notice, I should say that this row here is not part of the palette, and you can see I'm missing a couple because I use them. I just have all of my matte single shadows in here, so that are not Sydney Grace because they're in a different palette. I'm kind of thinking of them as singles versus a palette because that's how I like to work with them, and I think that will make it just, yeah, better for me. So I did do the looks. It was kind of fun. Was the last look that I'm showing was not the last look I made. I guess I did this sort of out of order, but you know, it's okay. I was like, okay, I don't know, let me just do something and I'm just gonna wash it off. I'm just gonna like make a look and move on. So that's why some of the looks you'll see aren't necessarily full like face finished off because I just was playing with some eyeshadow. So I'm like, all right, someone again on Instagram, I was inspired. They had a blue and purple look, which I often do, but they did blue more on like the lid and purple to blend it out. And I'm like, oh, I don't know, I might kind of like that. And so that's what I did here. I, did purple in the outer corner and then the blue, and then I used a loose pigment for the lid. And everything went well. The purple stayed. It didn't make a whole bunch of fallout. There might have been a little bit that I had to clean up, but I don't think it was much. And of course, it's a day when I was going to wash off anyway, and it didn't matter if it got all over my face. And then the blue is and they blended well. And then when I went to put the loose pigment on, sometimes it's a pain. No, it all went well. And I made a look that I liked, and I'm like, well, now I'm going to be taking it off. So that was, sort of well, okay, I guess I could recreate it at some point, but that if I recreate it, I'm going to get a whole mess. All right, my final palette is my Ulta palette. And this is going to be getting panned next year. I'm going to try to finish it completely. So this was a freebie, and it is definitely not a palette that I would pick out. I am actually wearing it on my eyes right now. You're gonna see the looks. I made it look 2 and 3, but now I've made them where they are the same because they were different. The only thing I had done differently, I did this shade all over the lid, but my crease was different. So on the one eye, I did a pink one. On the other eye, I used the blush to get more of a neutral, although it just looked kind of almost orangey on my eyes. So there's that. And then I was blending out with this dark, it's like a purpley shade. It's getting hard for you to see because it's dark in here with the rain out there. And so I did that. You can see this looks like I've loved this shade a lot, but really it just has been crumbling out of the pan every time I'm using it. So I guess that shade will get done pretty quickly. But yeah, I'm hoping I can finish this up. I did this gray shade and then ended up using this shade wet and kind of cutting the crease with it. And it was interesting. It's a little basic for me. So I ended up adding some shimmers on top, and I did a whole mix of shimmers, and it ended up just being this blue look that I did on Instagram. People were like, oh, I love that sparkly blue shadow. It's like, yeah, it's like 3 or 4 shadows in one, and somehow it just made that. But it's fine. It was pretty. So, at the end of the day, that's what you want. So I can't say that I really would want this as making looks, but I am fine with using it to, blend out some other eyeshadows or kind of mix in. I liked using this pink as a highlighter or blush topper type of thing. So I am hopeful that I can finish this. It'll be my first palette I've ever panned completely. So let's see. But yeah, this was a whole lot of me talking, but hopefully you enjoyed seeing the looks and seeing how I made use of these palettes as my little wrap up of the year. I am going to be doing a bunch of wrap up things. Some might get posted this month, some might get posted in the next month. I'm going to give myself a little bit of break from filming because partially I'll be away for some of it, and then I have the family around and all that. Thank you so much for watching this today. And I'm still undecided on if I'm going to do Project Level Up next year, because as you saw, those are the number of palettes I have, and it's not really a ton of palettes. So I don't know. Maybe I will do a partial, or maybe I'll wait and start it later in the year like I did this time. So we'll see. But until my next video, I hope that you will be doing well, and I will see you then. Bye. I don't know what got into me. Orange is usually one of my least favorite. Thank you, washer. I've got a Leaning Tower of Pisa of palettes going on here, so,